I'm back. I know it's a Thursday, I know this isn't the end of the week, but this really is the first chance I've had to film something in actually 7 days. So I thought I just want to talk about all the bots I've got in the past week, because actually it's been quite a lot. Now I've got them all here in one place. So it's probably gonna be longer than I think it is, this video, so I'm just gonna crack on and start at the beginning with my stuff from the unboxing I got. So, Darksteel. It's very nice to have another completely obscure movie Decepticon. I like this car mode, I do. It's just sleek and low and nice, and you've got all this lovely metallic teal on it. I think it looks really nice. Don't really mind the holes, but really it's an odd thing, because I really sort of do really like this figure, but then I don't. The plastic is rather bad for being a late wave Dark of the Moon figure. I suppose that's sort of to be expected. I can only assume that Sideswipe might feel better, but that wouldn't make him a better figure because this guy has just superior colour. Here is Darksteel in robot mode. Point 1. I never know what to do with these wing bits. They're on plenty of hinges, and it just sort of almost gives you too much choice, because I don't really know what I like, if I throw them up there or have them down there folded away, but it just adds to the backpack he's already got. Speaking of which, point number 2. In the instructions, I'm pretty sure it just sort of tells you to leave it folded down like that. But then I was thinking, well, what's the point of having the exhaust pipes fold away like that if you're just then going to just stick it there like that? And then I realised you can fold it up flat to the other piece on his back, and it all sort of holds it there. It saves space, and if this was Sideswipe, it'd be more movie accurate because you've got the exhaust pipes on his back. Point number 3. Yes, he hasn't got any knees. I mean, they bend forward, but they don't bend backwards. That's it. And then you've got these silly ankle bits, and from there down it's so insubstantial. You've got all these weird sort of bits that you can move to make him stand up better, which I suppose is nice considering how back heavy he is. Overall the figure has a good look, but at the same time doesn't really look like anything in particular. What is quite good is that his MechTech weapon actually has a bit of character to it, with this guy being a Beast Wars Quick Strike homage. It's nice that his weapons are all like snakes' fangs. I mean, the one that actually moves here is quite cool, because the way it unfurls, it's like when a snake sort of puts its teeth out when it's about to bite you. I think that's really cool. I mean, these are, again, just, well, they're remolds of Starscream's weapons, and I've tried them on my Thundercracker, and they do work a lot better when you've got ports on the forearms, because with this guy, he hasn't got anything like that, and he just can't hold them. There's too much stuff all up in here, and he has to hold the things at a weird angle. And when you have them combined into this giant thing, I honestly don't know what this is. How would you wield something like this? It's just a mass with two pointy bits at the end. I mean, I suppose it's meant to sort of spin round, because there's a big circular bit in the middle, and then there's the port directly behind that. But he just sort of has to hold it really awkwardly, and while it adds character, it then sort of takes away from the whole figure, because you just can't use it. You just can't. With that rant over though, he is still a fun figure to have. I mean, I'm starting to think that I do pick up and muck about with Dark of the Moon figures far more than any other figures, just because they're so much fun to just cover in guns, and there's something about them that just, they're good to play with. They're not necessarily very good figures, but you can look past that because they're a lot of fun. This guy is quite a lot of fun, really, but it just sort of feels like could have obviously been a lot better, but that's just how it goes, and you've got to make the best of what you've got. Continuing a slight rant, it's time to talk about Tailpipe and Pinpointer, the weird thing on the back with some guns coming out. I'm going to get the worst out of the way first and say that I don't like this little guy. It's nice to have him. It's nice to have a set that you get 2 bots in and the silly human dude, who I'll get to in a moment. But this guy is just rubbish. He looks like Mickey Mouse. He's got big black ears on the sides of his head. His legs are really far apart at the hips, and it looks like he's wearing gloves. This is Mickey Mouse with a couple of Gatling guns on his back. The arms are just cack with all this stuff hanging off, and it's really hard to move them. And the overall design of this guy is just like, what? He really doesn't look good. He just looks so silly and dumpy. And then he just turns into a box with some guns coming out. I mean, yeah, it's nice to have a Target Master. It's nice to have a... I suppose he's not a Minicon. He's too big for a Minicon. Just a smaller dude. But he could have been a hell of a lot better. But again, I suppose he's fun. You know, he's a little extra thing that you can just get some enjoyment from. But in reality, he isn't really any good. Tailpipe, I have quite mixed emotions about. He's not as bad as Pinpointer at all. This is a very fun figure. I think maybe it's because it's a new Scout figure to me. His robot mode just seems really fun. All of his joints are ball joints. He's really poseable, and there's some sort of quirky look about him. Then there's a lot of other strange little details. It's like a lot of his body parts don't seem to match. They all look like they're from a different bot. But overall, he does look quite good. The motorbike mode, I'm willing to forgive it because it's just nice to have a bike like this. But his arms are there, and the wheels are on this funny hinging assembly because of his weird choppery chopper bike weapon mode. The bike does suffer a little bit, but then if you were to look at a real bike, it'd have loads of inexplicable mechanical stuff hanging on the underside of it anyway, so I suppose that's okay. What isn't okay though is the human guy riding on here. I can't be bothered to show you it because A, it's a real hassle to get him to sit on here, and B, he is far too small for this to be a bike that he's riding. He's so small compared to this that it's just pointless that he's included in the set at all. It just doesn't look right. He's just, no, you don't need him at all. Really doesn't fit. He looks a hell of a lot better riding Legion RC, look. That scale. But again, it's an extra bit of fun, and of course he's a weird generic little human guy, but I quite like him because of the fact he seems to have got a bit of character, because of the way his face is sculpted and his eyes are painted. He looks very worried all the time. He looks like, oh no, what's going on? It's just quite funny. On to more enjoyable purchases. Not that I didn't enjoy that lot. A lot of fun. But what's even more fun is finally finding new Cyberverse guys. I've got a Dreadwing, and he's very nice. It's a real excellent commander figure once again. He's got nice accurate weapons and all the light piping in his chest and all that. He's really poseable and la-di-da. I don't really need to say a lot because look at it. It's excellent. They've effortlessly captured the sort of on-screen model. And it's like, when it's this sort of size class, you realise, yeah, the figure could be done a hell of a lot better, but I'm looking at it and I can't really see how. It's really very nearly flawless. And then, a few days later, I found Ironhide 2. Now, he isn't as nice as Dreadwing. I think that's simply because he hasn't got an on-screen model to go by. I mean, this is from Ken Christensen, I think is his name, concept art, which was done in 2009. That's a long time ago, really. I can only sort of think that it was made because at the time when they started writing Prime, they were going to have Ironhide in the sort of role you've got Bulkhead in now, and then they realised the character writers more like Bulkhead and they changed it. So this guy's a sort of left behind design, but he is nice. It's so nice to have a proper sort of definitive Ironhide. He's got the G1 head and chest, and he's got red bits on, and then everything that you don't really need to make it look G1 is black like movie Ironhide, so it's the best of both worlds. You're left with a really nice design, but the execution of said design is a little bit wonky in places. I don't really like these weird sort of hips he's got, those sort of skeletal bits hanging off the side. His legs are nice and chunky, he's got tilting ankles due to transformation, but his arms are probably the bits which sort of leave me going a bit ooh, because his elbows, they sort of feel like they're in the wrong place. They're ball jointed, which is nice, but it's like the joint is in his upper arm when it should have been in his lower arm, and it just feels like this is too much moving and there's not enough up here, and it just doesn't feel right. And then of course you've just got all the kibble flaps hanging off. They're detachable, but I don't really want to have to go back to the days of parts forming for the sake of a good looking robot mode. What I was really surprised about with the transformation was that the windscreen, that is actually his chest. I didn't actually think that. I looked at it in the box and thought, oh, the windscreen's probably hanging off his back somewhere. I couldn't see how that bit of glass on his chest actually made the bit of glass on the front of the car, and it's really clever. He has got all the light piping in his chest going on. While it is only this little post on the back that lets the light through, you can see it just about there. It does glow really well. That's just really cleverly done. And when it sort of lights up, you see all these extra details under there as well. That is nice. That wasn't all, because I am now in possession of a Fox Kids Dinobot. And there is quite a story attached to this figure. This guy comes from Matter Smasher because on Twitter he was saying that his cat was ill and he was needing to sell some of his figures to get money for the antibiotics, and of course everyone who saw that just thought, oh, we've got to help. And of course that was compounded by him putting up some really cute pictures of said cat, and so I thought, I've got to send him some money. That's the right thing to do. So I looked through the list of what he was selling, came across this guy and thought, yes, I'll take a punt, because I know it's quite a nice deco. I've seen pictures of him before. And when he said $5 with postage, I said get in, and I'm in possession of this thing. The Raptor mode is obviously completely wrong really, but it is a nice figure. It's strange though, because I look at it and I don't instantly think Dinobot. Maybe it's because he hasn't actually got a face like he does in the show. He's only got a face plate, and the deco is obviously a lot different, and he does lack quite a lot of paint. There's none on his legs at all, and I'm thinking that might be because in those days making things out of entirely shiny plastic like this was probably some sort of gimmicky thing. And it's nice, I've got to tell you. All of the plastic on this guy is shiny and it looks nice. And it also makes me poo myself a bit, because this is a 90s figure made entirely out of metallic swirly plastic, which is gold. I'm worried he may crumble to dust sometime soon, because this is a prime candidate for GPS. But he seems to have held up, because when I put pictures on Twitter that I'd got him when he arrived, Brentosaur suddenly said, that's my Dinobot that I sent to Matter Smasher. So he's obviously got about the place and lasted pretty well, so I'm not really fearing for the existence of this figure at the moment. I'm going to say auf Wiedersehen, and I shall see you again in a moment, but possibly not with all these robots, you know. Let's edit this, sucker! Dreadwing, he's got a big Dreadwing, and he flies through the air, cause he's got a Dreadwing.